Okay, good news. I'm back. I am back doing the show, and I'm so grateful that it's been frozen in time and available for me to restart. What's been interesting about this restarting process is that a few years ago, 2024, the way that we created content is completely different than we do it now. We can generate a paragraph, a caption, a brand voice, a completely filled in, thought out podcast script. I could even generate a face to say the thing for me. And so I just wanted to say here that I won't be using AI for any of my shows. I mean, other than research and whatnot. It just feels like that's important for me to say. I mean, I use it all of the time and it's not bad, you know, unless we're considering all of the natural resources it consumes. It's just that what I like to do here, this kind of shadow work stuff, it depends on something that I feel can't be outsourced. Shadow work really relies on a felt sense of contact. And when people know the words are coming from my body and my timing and my nervous system, I just hope it resonates differently. Or like resonates in the way that it used to when you would hear somebody on a podcast or on a show. Okay, now this public service announcement is relevant to today's show, which is all about owning the frequency of your voice. To have this conversation with me, I brought in my new bestie, Melanie Spring, the brand muse. Melanie has spent decades helping people find their voice. I think in the show she said she was coding and creating websites in the 90s. Today, she is using the tools we have available to us, like human design, nervous system work. She's witchy, medicine-y, all the things we like. All of this to help people become really fantastic speakers. And she's deeply uninterested in teaching people how to sound like a speaker robot. Another thing I really appreciate about Melanie is that she doesn't treat voice as content. She looks at it as a diagnostic tool. So this conversation is about speech as shadow work and about why just be yourself is really bad advice if you don't actually know who that is yet. We're also going to explore human design types and her suggestions on how each can approach public speaking, which I thought was super cool. All right, let's get into it. Oh yeah, and this is Shadow Work Library. I'm Jessica DePazzi, and I'm a very rusty host. People have this ability to generate really good looking content. I mean, okay, let me back up. Good enough content in seconds. And we can get these teleprompters right on our phones. And if we're having a bad hair day or we don't like our face, we can generate an avatar and that can, design us to look however we want. So it's seeming like the value of self-expression through speaking really isn't in the words anymore, at least not in the way that it used to be. Good words are not going to signal authority or whatever your intention is. And I know that this is your thing, Melanie, helping people orient themselves to their own resonance, to their point of view, because maybe this is a good thing, but the quality of one's consciousness, I think, is going to be our new currency. And if we can get ahead on that for many reasons, that's amazing. Before we get into the magic of embodiment, I did want to start off with how we might be able to use AI better. I think that's a topical place to start because people are really relying on this tool, on LLMs to speak for them. And I'm feeling this big disconnection between the words that are being said and the body that doesn't really seem to be involved in making them. So I wanted to pass this over to you. How do you see the difference between using AI for clarity and then, yeah, or using it in a way that actually bypasses embodiment?
Ugh, I love that you're starting here. And then we're like, all right, we're going straight into all of this. Delicious. Well, I have this idea that in order for us to use AI well, we have to be using our own AI. So our aligned intuition. And so I like to think of AI as a partner, not as something we should defer to. And I've been around since I've been doing websites since 1995. So I feel like I've been around since the beginning of the internet. And I was around before Google, so I was trying to figure out how to search things and understand how to find things on the internet. And then also, I mean, we used the Dewey Decimal System when I was a kid, so I had to find certain things in paper ways. So I got really good at figuring things out and like understanding where do I go to find a thing. And I even started figuring out that I built communities so that I could stop having to know the answer. And I'm like, oh, I know a person who has that answer. And so I've been like not using the internet as much to find answers as I am using the human capital in my life. But at the same time, AI makes our lives easier. There's no question about that. And a lot of people are going, oh, don't use AI because it's bad. And it's not bad. The bad part about it for me is that when people defer to it and say, I'm going to have AI do this for me, and then they just use it, that doesn't help. So I think of it as a discernment and an understanding of, can I tap into myself and understand what questions do I need to ask to find answers that will be most helpful, because it will people please us. It will tell us what we want to hear. It will do what we need that'll give us what we want to get, but then can we be discerning in how we're taking that information? And can we still be the creative humans that we are to take that and go, no, 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 let me change it. So I'm not using AI like a lot of people where they're like, oh, I'm using it as a search engine. I barely use ChatGPT for stuff because I want to go find a person who has an answer and then maybe check it and see, like, is it the same answer? But it doesn't know everything yet. So can I make sure that I'm doing that part of it? And then on the other side, I'm still writing an entire blog post. I'll put it into Claude, which is my favorite GPT, and ask it if it can just make it better. Or sometimes I have two ideas and I'm like, oh, but can you split this into two? Because I went one direction and then I figured out, okay, help me with this. And it helps me reorient. But then I take it and once I edit it, put it back in and say, please learn from what I did. So it can help me faster and faster in the future. But I think a lot of people are using it as a quick fix rather than what it's there for.
I think so too. I mean, I'm not on a soapbox. I use it for a lot of quick fixes. So let me get off of that for a moment. Before we were chatting, I think you had mentioned to me that you learned how to use Google in a really good way. I mean, maybe you're just innately good at asking the right kinds of questions,
Mhm.
and that can give us certain kinds of answers. I mean, that's a meta thing in itself. That's not just a Google thing or an AI
Right.
thing, right? We
Yeah.
ask ourselves the wrong questions, we're going to get the wrong kinds of answers. But what would be some of the ways that when you're working with people, yeah, having them, I mean, you had mentioned, what was that? What intuition? Aligned intuition, the
Aligned
new
intuition.
AI? Yeah, tell me
Mhm.
more about that. And what is the role of asking better questions?
Well, it's allowing ourselves to be aligned between our body, our mind, and our soul, and helping us go, okay, what's the thing I really want? It's not usually the first question. It's not usually like, oh, I think I want this. It's like, okay, well, why do I want that? And what will I get from that when I get it? So, trying to think of a specific example. Like, let's say I wanted to find, well, this is simple. I love chomps, like I love these. But if I forgot the name of them, what would I put into Google or Amazon to help me find this? Like, it's a meat stick. Okay. But it's an organic meat stick that's grass fed, like being able to ask enough questions to be able to get down to what's the real answer that I'm looking for, or even finding things that are like, is this even possible to find? Is there something I can show it to help me find the thing that I'm looking for? So it's being able to go into the more specific places to be able to find the answers rather than just like I found stuff that I didn't believe was possible to find sometimes on Google, but I think it's because I'm just so curious about things that I like to go deeper and deeper and deeper into something before I find the answer.
I think it's such a fun conversation to have, to bring intuition and technology together, because there's such a somatic experience of one's intuition. And I'll just speak from personal experience. If I'm too techie for a day, like I am going full ChatGPT nuts, which I do sometimes because I do a lot of research, right?
Yeah.
I can get very disembodied. Like I'm so much in my head. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, I have all this content and all this stuff that I'm like, this has gotten way too far. I don't know. I have existential moments all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the role of somatics in this experience of, yeah, like using AI in a way to refine maybe our self-expression and like to find our words?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it goes back to the work you do, which is with the brand of you and also mixing it with who you really are, which can be through gene keys or human design or whatever way you want to look at it. And it's not just going, "Hey, tell me what this person needs to say with this answer." It's like, okay, that's deferring to it. And if you read it and you're like, "Actually, I don't really feel like that's what I was looking for." you're using your intuition to go, this feels off to me. So maybe I need to ask different questions to go to it. But a lot of people go, well, that's what it said. So obviously it's true, which is funny because the other day I was on cloud doing something and I was doing a launch and I was like, okay, can you put these things in here and do this? And it kept giving me Monday and the January date was like, that's not the day of that Monday. Are you telling me 2025 dates? And I was like, oh, sorry, I am. I'll
Mhm.
update that. And then it did it again. And I was like, okay, so if you're messing up dates, I'm worried about a lot of other things at this point. But then it goes back, like you said, the somatic piece of it. I had a friend of mine bring her kids over to my house, and one of them she gave an iPad to, the other one's broke, and he was playing on something. And while she was sitting there, I couldn't feel her body. I couldn't feel her system. Her soul wasn't in the room anymore. And she sat there for so long that by the time we finally got off the iPad, it took us like, let's sit on the floor, let's play with something, let's get you some food, let's get you back in your body because her soul like disconnected from her body while she was on a screen. And I think we don't realize the effect it has on us asking it, deferring to it, telling it, like, I need these things from you. And then our creativity is gone. Like, she didn't even know how to play after that. And I was asking her, tell me about your dolly. And like going through all these things because she had been so sucked into the technology. And I don't think that's a kid thing. I think all of us are doing that in some ways.
I resonate with that. The other day, I challenged myself to put out my first podcast in a very long time. It's been about 2 years. And I had to practice some discipline to not use AI because I use it for
Mm,
so many things. I had to tell myself there is not one word that's going to be written for this podcast that comes through this process simply because AI can't contemplate. And that's so much of my process for that show
mm.
anyway. Sure, give me a newsletter. You might see some stuff. But there's something about it really needing to come from my heart that's so important. And honestly, I was out of practice. So that was an interesting kind of experience.
Yeah.
So you're a professional keynote speaker, which I think is so badass.
Thanks.
I say that also particularly because I went to my first Toastmasters last Tuesday with our
Mm,
mutual friend, Michael Anders. And this was so fun because, first of all, a room full of 30 people, probably in their late 60s, early 70s. Some of them have been going to this Toastmasters for 40 years, Melanie.
right.
40 years. They were amazing. The
Hmm.
energy, it was so good. I had gone to one Toastmasters in college and I swore I would never go back because it was so lame, but this one was great. But I really saw this enormous gap between my public presentation of my voice and where it could be.
Mm,
I've had this experience before when I've met Richard Rudd, who is a lifelong contemplator. As someone who's fairly new on the contemplative journey, I was able to see an elder who has lived and walked that path. And I was like, wow, that is so inspiring. So I also look at you in this way, someone who is also known to be the brand muse, someone that is so freely expressed. One of the things that you've been known to say is advice, bad advice to people who are looking to speak better or more authentically is just be yourself.
mm.
Right there?
Yes. Agreed.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it becomes like an issue of identity, does it not?
Yeah. Yeah. Two branding people got on a call and we started talking about identity. Weird.
I know. Stop us. Just kidding. I would love for you to share a little bit of your process in helping the people that you work with stop performing an identity and really like inhabiting their identity or like identifying their identity.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually in the middle as we're recording this of a challenge that I put together called the Unmuted Embodiment Challenge. And it's about being able to really step into that. And Michael is one of those people in here because he's been practicing a talk and really understanding how he can show up for himself, but also how he can show up for his clients and his family and all the other people in his life. And we'll just pick on him for a second because he would not mind. But he was talking about how he shows up and helps people with command presence. And when I asked him, I did a little clearing for him one day and I asked him to send me a video. And after I watched it, I was like, Michael, where's your command presence? And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't see it. Like, you're not embodying the thing that you're teaching. And he was like, ooh, that doesn't feel good at all. And I'm like, but where did it go? Like, why are you putting on some sort of mask or experience just to give me a testimonial? Like, you're not even speaking. You're not getting in front of people. You're giving me a little video. So what's that mask between you and me in the video. And so there's all these places in our lives that we mute ourselves. And that's why I put this challenge together, because when we have to mute ourselves in any place, that means we're being a chameleon. We're changing who we are to fit some sort of, I'm going to do this to make you happy, or I'm going to do this to make you like me, or I'm going to do this so I don't make you upset, or you don't dislike what I'm saying. And we mute ourselves so much because I know him to be very dynamic. I know him to be very outgoing, very like a big presence. And I watched him go, and I was like, ooh, whoa, whoa, what is this? And why are you doing that? And so even recently we talked about him wearing a suit to something.
Mm.
And I said the words, why are you wearing a suit? He goes, oh, I like wearing suits. And I was like, okay, I'm not asking you not to. But he's like, no, 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 but I like wearing a suit. I'm like, still not asking you not to. He's like, well, you're going to tell me not to wear a suit. I'm like, still didn't say that. But there's this like response of, well, I like to do this, and I can see that there's something in your what you're saying that I might need to change if I do wear that suit. And the reality of it was that I asked him, what words do you say differently in a suit versus not? What performance do you have in a suit versus not? Are you saying the same things the same way in your sweatshirt as you are in a suit? And that's where most people get messed up. And that's why we have Toastmasters. We have places for people to practice, because it's really hard to be yourself when you don't know who that is. Or when you think that there are rules around things. Like we have all these made up rules. If we were all in a place 300 years ago, we would have completely and utterly different rules around engagement and expression and who we are and how we show up. But somehow we have these pretend rules now that we've all made up together and decided on together. And we hold ourselves accountable to those things. And then people like me, a 5-1 manifestor, walks in and goes, why? Delete. I don't want to do that. I'm not available for that. How can we help you not do that? So I think there's these different masks that we put on just to try to show up in a way that helps people be a lot more happy with us in some way.
Yeah, I'm so glad you had brought up these older societies. I think you'd said that, unless I'm just hearing what I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear. I was thinking about ritualistic societies before we hopped on this podcast around the role of speaking back in
Mm-hmm.
the day was so important. It's how, I mean, we were taught through the spoken word. It's how we understand what our culture was. It created culture. Even artists like singers or shamans, like everything was about language.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was an exchange, an energetic exchange that I think was really important back then that I think we've lost a little bit. We still have celebrity and that has a lot of reverence, like it or not. But the actual like spiritual importance of being embodied in what you're speaking spells,
Mm-hmm.
I think has been sort of lost.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that that's a big disservice to all of us, because I found out that the word gossip originally didn't mean we were talking about each other behind each other's backs. It was actually the only form of communication we really had. Like when one village had a flu or something, someone went and gossiped to the next village to make sure that they were protected, or someone was attacking the other village. Okay, I got to make sure I go tell them that this is happening, not because they were trying to talk badly about someone, but like even the form of gossip, I like to think of things like that as we can change what this means for us, because I have two rules about life: no lying, no gossiping. That's just a part of who I am. I'm available for helping people shift it. But if I find out that you're gossiping about me, like I'm unavailable for that. And we can move it, but I've started taking those things into like golden gossip. Like, can we change how we use this word? Like, I
Mm.
could talk about Jessica and this amazing podcast she has and how great her life is. And I can see what she's about to do. And like, it just starts filling you up as I start talking about that, because that's the way that it's supposed to be. But we've taken these things that are supposed to be powerful and we made them bad and made them hard and made them hurtful rather than being important to us. So our voices are really important, but so many people are silenced because they're worried, well, I'm going to get canceled. I'm going to get told I'm wrong. I'm going to be badmouth. I'm going to be kicked out, whatever that is. I'm not going to belong anymore if I say something.
You've worked with a lot of people at this point on expressing themselves through their voice. Is there a kind of personality trait or a characteristic that is particularly difficult to work with? Like a particular kind of block? That's
Like
kind of sticky.
narcissism.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know what the answer is. What do you have?
I mean,
Mm.
that's a hard one. And I've had to work with that in different medicine spaces too, is like once someone learns enough about something, they can use it against you. And so, and narcissism is that way where it's like, no, 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 my wound is your fault. I'm not at fault for this. You're at fault for this. And that's a very simplified version of that. But when someone can find enough information about things, they can use even more against you and use
Mm.
that voice, which shuts people down so quickly. So it's being able to give people their voice back to say, no, that's not okay. And you can't do that. I'm not available for that. I think a lot of it has to do with boundaries with communication and boundaries with ourselves, which this year has been a huge topic about
Mm.
boundaries and setting them and making them happen. But it's using your voice to do it. And our throat chakras are not as practiced as they used to be. They're not something, we're not using them all the time the way that we need to. We're doing a lot of like, I'm sitting behind my computer and complaining about something rather than going to that person and instead of being resentful, you can say, hey, that really hurt me
How much do you know about human design? I'm not a
a
big human
lot.
design person. Okay, great. Yay. All right. So I have an open throat center, and
Hmm.
I think about this often because I do change the way that I speak
Hmm.
based on who I'm communicating with. And it's interesting to me. Sometimes it's a problem, but I think at this point in my life, I really love it.
Hmm.
It allows me to have a bit of a universal language. Could you explain, first of all, the open and closed
The open and
centers and
closed.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have an open throat chakra too, which you
Mm.
wouldn't think, but
I wouldn't think that actually.
right, exactly. So, and I've been really good my whole life at fitting into different scenarios. Like I'm from Western New York, which is a very redneck, very I'll fill in the blanks for you in your mind, but it's that like not my style. But when I go back there, I start sounding like it. And I even hear some things that I'm like, is that really okay with me? Like that they even said that. Why would they say that? But then I don't say something. And it's just funny to see me try to go back to those spaces where I kept my voice silent versus other places where I very much speak up and I don't want to be like everyone else. But I find myself, I have to be very careful with who I spend time with so that I don't accidentally start wait, do I believe that? Is that how I think? Is that what I would say? Because of that, like, and I also have an open self center too. Like,
Mm.
I don't have my sense of self is not defined, and neither is my husband's, which can be a big, huge problem. So, and the defined and the open centers versus closed centers mean your open center means that you're more malleable. Like, you can change the way that you feel in those scenarios or in those situations. You can change how your perception is. Where if you have it closed, that's something that's like, yeah, I'm like this and I'm okay with it. And I can just really stand in that and stand firm in that. So
Mm.
when other people are around, you don't shift who you are because of that.
When people join your Speak with Confidence course, which is, I mean, could you give us a quick
Yeah.
thing on what that is? And then I'll continue on.
Sure. Yeah. So I built Speak with Confidence 8 years ago because I had been doing retreats and getting people together. And I realized I was spending like 300 hours trying to get 10 people ready for a stage. I was helping them get demo reels and pictures on a stage, like a real stage. I didn't realize the level of work it would take to get people to do that one on one. So I put this course together, but I was a brand strategist before I was a speaker. And then I quit my branding agency and went full time into speaking and kept having people go, you don't speak like a speaker. Why do you get to speak like you and everyone else sounds like a speaker robot? I'm like, yeah, because I'm a brand strategist. And it just translates that I should just be more me on stage. And I knew who I was as I was doing that. Still had tons of anxiety, got through that. We can talk about that later. But this course helped me understand like you have tons of IP. You have a lot of information in you that could be disparate, but it all could actually have a thread between all of it. So I help people dump all of that out. We talk about brand and who you are and your voice and why you show up that way and what other people think about you so that you can get a feel for that. We even talk about putting all of the pieces together with what I call the dish method: data, impact, story, human, and then how to write the talk, put the whole thing together, remember the talk, memorize it without memorizing it, practice it, market it, and then build a business around it. So I've got all these pieces of this thing that I was like, this is a giant, crazy thing that I'm putting together, but it's all the stuff I wish I had known when I was putting a
Mm.
talk together. And that everyone's just like, none of your talks sound the same. And I'm like, yeah, that's the idea. And they're like, no, no, but you have a framework. And I'm like, mm-hmm. They're like, I don't believe that. Okay. But all of those speakers that I train, it's not like I'm training them to be like me. I'm
Mm.
actually trying to help them be more fully self-expressed. So we
Mhm.
have a 90-day collective. We start on February 18th, and we also do an online course with it too. But me getting my hands on people is my favorite part. Like, ooh, come to me, give me your stuff, let's practice it. It's not like join my online course and now you can be a speaker. It's like, no, here's the steps to it. Here's the workbook. Here's the real stuff, which I love a good, solid, real workbook.
Mm.
And how can we get you to be the most self-expressed through you being more you? But you have to know who you are as you're doing that. So my retreats used to be speaking retreats that were really personal growth retreats where people were crying and breaking down and feeling all the feelings and getting through it, but they were the person at the end of it who did that talk, which was the idea.
I think we need that. I think that there are a lot of really good bait and switch programs out there that bring people back to the humanity of like what actually might be standing in our way, which does not, yeah, you're not going to hear about that on Anthony Hormozzi's podcast, you know.
No.
But it's also hard to market. I mean, I think we're going down a rabbit hole here, but whatever. It's my show. It's I find it very interesting to market stuff like that because the reality of people showing up at your retreat, they at that point, if they've known you long enough, they kind of know what they're getting into, some really magical stuff. You can't start people off too early with that information because can sound grifty, it can sound way too big,
Mm-hmm.
um, it can sound just impossible, you know, but
Right.
it's really amazing what can happen in the right room with the right guidance and the right, like, yeah, circle of people
Right.
and the right other types of stuff.
And I think at the end of the day, that's what why a lot of people gave me feedback on the retreats that I would do or the groups that I would put together. Even if it was online during 2020, we had to do the whole thing online, which was like
Mm.
but every single person commented, I know that I'm safe because you're the one curating this group. It's not like it's just random people coming to this thing and we'll see what happens. They're
Mhm.
like, you're actually leading it and then curating and calling in those right people for each other. So by the end, everyone's just like, oh, you guys are like the best people ever. How did I get a chance to be in this? And it's like, well, they're all a reflection of you. So how can I make sure that I'm using my manifestorness to call in the energy of all that is there, which I forget all the time. Even today, I was just like, how do I call in the energy of everything I want? Oh, yeah, I have to like be that person. That's right. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. But it's that continued effort of this isn't about the course. This isn't about the speaking. This isn't about the end goal. This is about am I in the right room with the right people, getting the feedback that I really need. Like Michael is one of those examples. I love that we're picking on him today, but he's one of those examples where he's like, I've never had someone sit with me at the level you've sat with me and show me the truth, even if it hurts, just really be able to sit with me in it to go, it's going to be okay and we're going to get through this. He's like, because I need someone to do that. And the only reason I know I can do that for people is because I've hired people to do that for me. And that's the hardest part about this is you have to walk through the fire yourself in order to sit with other people in that same scenario. And like you said, I've seen a lot of people build a lot of things, which I don't talk badly about other people on the internet, but there's this like I see a lot of like, yeah, we're gonna do this amazing thing. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And then later I have people say, that's not safe. Like the way that they're doing that
Mm.
isn't safe, or even the way they're giving feedback. It's like all judgment and criticism, and you shouldn't do this. And I mean, I love Toastmasters for people who want to practice, but there's a lot of emphasis on certain things that don't need to be emphasized. It's because it's not about fitting in a mold or doing things a certain way. It's about how can I help you become more you?
What I'm hearing here is like really next level creative work in an industry that can look really homogenized. Like
Hmm.
a lot of TEDx talks are just so hard to look at.
I can't listen to them anymore.
My God. You know, they stand on that little red dot and it's like I feel exposed for them.
Right.
No.
Well, it's the speaker robot piece because they want you to memorize every word in order to make
Mhm.
sure it comes out a certain way. But I'm like, but where are the feelings?
Yeah.
Like, where's the human inside of that? I
You're
actually
getting the
just wrote
pie
about
shops.
this. Right. Well, it's I had a friend of mine who just did this and she gave me her whole talk. It was 10 minutes. And I looked at her at the end. I was like, that's beautiful words. Where's my friend? And she was like,
Mm.
what? I was like, no. You are like big voices, little voices. She's from Britain originally, but she moved to Australia. She lives in Canada. So her accent is
Oh.
amazing. Just like all of the like mixing together. And so I have like, can you talk about that in the professor voice? Can you talk about that in your little kid voice? Can you talk? And we did it. And she just got up there and her husband was like, that was the best TED Talk I've ever
Mm.
seen. And I was like, that, because it's not about the words. It's all just words. Who cares? If you get them to feel something, they'll remember it.
Yeah, yeah. I was listening to this audiobook on a flight the other day called oh my God, Into the Weeds. That might be totally wrong title. Anyway, it was written by the old producer, the longtime producer of Anthony Bourdain's shows.
Hmm.
I think he did No Reservations and then the Borders one. And it was like fascinating. And something that they had talked about was how different every show is, but it
Hmm.
still felt so iconically like Tony,
Hmm.
right? Like there was barely any structure to the way that they did this. Sure, it started and ended with a monologue, but throughout it, there was very, very little framework. And the editors were working hard because he wanted every single presentation of his to feel as coherent to the country or the city that he was visiting. And it kind of has me thinking about how you're working with these speakers to orient themselves to the crowd and to the energy of the room, which can be so different. And
So different.
yeah, I can just imagine a framework can be harmful in a lot of those instances, or like a memorized thing.
Yeah. Well, and I had a client of mine who I have a private work that I do called the embodiment. And
Mhm.
while we were working together, she was going from like CEO of a marketing company to sex and intimacy therapist, or not sex and intimacy therapist, coach. So she was like helping people with sex and intimacy through the business world. Like we wrote a talk called From the Bedroom to the Boardroom,
Hmm.
how being a great lover makes you a great leader. And we were talking about sex in the work. It's like not actual sex in the workplace, but you're using your sexual energy, your tantric energy to lead, to really use that in a helpful way, not a harmful way. Not hitting on your secretary, but actually selling the way that you need to sell. And so as we were working on it, she was realizing how she hadn't been embodied in the work that she was doing. And that was the problem, is like being able to really step into that, like, oh, no, no, I have to be the person who does this. I have to be the person who steps into this. And giving her a framework gave her like the steps and the pieces of it. But what she realized by the end of it is she knew all of her stuff. We just had to give her a place to start. We had to remind her that there were steps along the way. But if she wanted to go off on a tangent, because she's a manifesting generator, tangents are key. Like, feel free. But she had to be able to breathe through it, realize, oh, I just got off on a tangent. How can I get back to step two? Ah, reset. Now, step two. And it's being able to walk through the process in a way that keeps you going, but you can still fully tap into your intuition. Because if they're half asleep halfway through your talk, change the point. Like, shift gears, go into something else, wake them up. But you can't just like, I have to talk about this, and then worry about them the whole time. Because
Oh.
that's what a lot of people forget about, is like, how much more present could you be that you're not trying to be in the talk? You're actually there with the audience.
Do you use specific design in your program? Like,
I use it to be dangerous enough, and
okay.
mostly to help people with, oh, you're a projector. Let's be really careful with how we get you reset before you have to get on stage, and how you don't take on the energy of the audience. Where a generator, I'm like, let's freaking go, like straight in, like
Ah.
let's go after it. And also thinking about how they step in, like if a reflector gets on stage, they have to be so careful, because otherwise they're just like, reflecting the energy of the audience the whole time. So they have to be really protected as they go. So it's each person is
Ooh.
just different. So yeah.
Can we go through some of the signs, like, or the
Yeah.
types? I think that would be a really fun way to close this off. Okay, projector, me.
I would tell you that preparation is key for this, but also the rest that you need ahead of time is the part that's going to help you the most. And so the more settled you can get your energy body, the more settled you'll be able to drop into your intuition on stage. And if we try to get you to memorize too much, it's going to go badly, because you're going to be dropping in intuitively and then be like, wait, what? Who's
Mhm.
talking? Why are we talking about this? So I would give you a framework, but I would have you practice random parts of it. I'd be like, okay, go to section 3 and give me your first 10 words. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And so go from there. So I'd have you practice differently, but also, again, be really like systematic about how can we get you into the state where you're fully dropping into your intuition, getting started, but letting go of the outcome.
Oh, that's so good. And obviously, this isn't just about stage stuff. Like, this is
No, by
very
no means.
clearly
Yeah,
about
I'm not
life.
just training keynote speakers. I'm like, hey, you need to go tell your boss you need a raise. Let's do it. So, yeah, each of
Yeah.
those things.
Okay, what about the generators? And would you call man gens like generator or more man?
No, they're straight in the middle. They're
Okay.
the ones that I really have to be careful of because my husband's a man gen. So a lot of people like to lump them together, and I'm like, they're not
Mhm.
like each other though. So it's interesting that people, because they have the generator ability, the problem is like a generator will go like have a very specific talk and they need to memorize it. They want to like know the first thing, know the second thing, get to it. Sure, they can use their intuition on things, but that's not what we're trying to do. And how they get speaking gigs is totally different. So they need to be like, you need to be invited to a speaking gig, right? You need to be like, hey, Jessica, could you be on my podcast? You'd be like, oh my God, how amazing that you, but you're not going to be like, can I be on your podcast? So it's that kind of thing. And then generators are typically waiting to respond. They're sitting there going, okay, I'm going to respond to the audience. So if they can build in some response spaces, it helps them really be able to step into their expertise and know, like, yeah, I got this because I know how to respond. So they have to build in certain places to help people do that for them, like call and response kind of things. Like, hey, do you have a question? Oh, yeah, great. Okay, let's do it. But the man gens, they're like the tangent holders. They're like, all right, I'm going to give you five different things to talk about. You can talk about it however you want to. Let's see what happens. And so I'm going to have them practice different things and see what lights them up. But even the one I was just telling you about, the sex and intimacy coach, I had to be very clear with her. We're building out a talk that you can then change at any moment, but keep the structure. Like you have the structure so you don't lose your way. But that story that you told about your son, tell a story about a client next time because you're going to want to change it up. If you tell the same talk over and over and over again, so a lot of like National Speakers Association speakers are generators. They're the ones like older, that's it's
Mm.
an older school of generation, but they're the like, I have to have a framework. I need to give the same talk. And they give it for 30 years and they're still excited about it. Mangens kill them if they have to do the same thing twice.
That's so great. My friend Mark England is a generator, and he has been giving the same podcast for uh, 10 years now,
Hmm.
and it gets better. It actually, I love it every time I hear
Because
it.
it's the practicing, it's the mastery. They're able to do that. Where mangens are like, well, I don't want to talk about that again.
Yeah.
Boring. That's why I
Okay.
don't lump them together because I'm like, they're not the same. So,
Tell me about manifestors. So you're 5-1
mhm.
manifester. What is your mode in
I'm
speaking
always
with?
writing new talks. I'm always like, ooh, but I have something else I want to say. And I'm always trying to think of that's why I actually created the framework. Because as a manifester, I have to really put things in place to keep myself on track. Like I'm one of the harder ones to train because I realized that like even my closet, this is a small example, but if I don't have my closet in a color coded order in the type of clothes that it is, I forget what I own. Like I'm
Oh.
like, I need pants. I go to the pants section. I look through the certain colors. Like it's like that kind of level of like I'm insane. But it's because of the fact that if you make me go do the same thing all the time, I'm just gonna quit. Like no thanks. And I've realized that my expertise I get bored with all the time. So if I'm like teaching speak with confidence, I'm like, I have to do this forever. Ugh, terrible idea. But then I pulled it out after 8 years and I was like, this is a really good course, but I want to rewrite it all. So I did. I rewrote the entire thing. And then I want to be able to have other people like you come in and go, why don't you teach them about branding and how their gene keys fit with that? Ah, amazing. Because I don't want to do that long term. I want to bring in a performance artist and be like, hey, can you teach them about this? Because like I'm really good at certain pieces, but I
Mm.
don't want to be the expert at all of them. So I like to know, like even for my own talks, I'm about to rewrite all of my stuff. I don't want to give any of the talks I've been given, which they're such great talks, but whatever, because I want to write a talk called Unmuted and help everyday people get their voice out of their system so they don't have to keep themselves muted anymore. And that means like with their clothes, with how they show up, with their embodiment, all of it. I want to help people really be embodied. But I laugh at myself a little because I'm like, if I go back to the very beginning of my career, I'm literally doing the same thing I always did because this is what I'm here to do. I'm helping people be more self-expressed. I did
Mm.
it with branding, I did it with websites, I did it with marketing materials, I did it with speaking, I've done it with like healing retreats, whatever I'm trying to do, it's like one thing after another. It's all the same thing. I just have to put a different clothes on it so I can have more fun with it.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I resonate with that quite a lot. I
Well,
think
projectors and manifestors are very similar. So,
we're
mhm.
such pain in the asses. You know, I look at my
Mhm.
meandering career, I'm like, it does make sense though, because there's always
Right.
been this through line of wanting to contribute in some way, probably from my own um, disembodiment with who I was. But I
Hmm.
want people to be who they are. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun to meet someone who's an iconic version of themselves, you know?
Amen. Yeah. Hmm.
Tell me about the reflectors. I'm not going to let you off the hook yet. We had one more.
Okay. The reflectors, I would take them even further than the projectors because they are very similar to manifestors in the sense that they reflect the world around them. Yet, if they don't know who they are, they can be a total mess. So, having a reflector get on stage worrying about what the audience is going to think about them is the worst idea. So, being able to get really solid, like, I know who I am, that's when I would put someone like that on stage because and there's a lot more reflectors and projectors coming up in the world. Like there was a generation of generators before us, the Xers, and before them the boomers. There's a lot of generators. And the manifestors were running the world. Now the projectors are running the world, which is so fun because bye, have fun, enjoy that. But the reflectors are coming up in the world because we need more people reflecting the truth of what's going on. And they're not as well liked like manifestors. We do a lot of reflecting and people are like, oh, I don't like that. Like I've walked in rooms where people are like, yeah, I don't like that. I'm like, I didn't even say anything. Like, really? But it's
Mhm.
because of the fact that reflectors just do that. I have a sister-in-law who's a reflector. And when I found out, I was like, oh, this makes everything make sense. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, when you were with your first boyfriend, you were kind of a nightmare. And she was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I was like, because he was a total nightmare. Now you're with like the sweetest, softest, most gentle, wonderful guy. You're super chill and amazing. And she's like,
Mm.
oh, so even with reflectors on stage, I would say be really careful the audience you speak to because you don't just like, I went to a trees and utilities conference and spoke, and all the guys were like, prove it. By the end, they were crying, hugging each other. Someone came up and was like, I will hire you to help me do that. Whatever you just did, I want to do that. But I would never put a reflector in front of the audience if they didn't know who they were. So it's just being really careful of that.
I really appreciate your honesty, especially in this space where honesty is kind of hard to come by because people are looking to fill seats, you know? I mean, that's what it's like to be an entrepreneur, especially in the service industry.
Right.
And yeah, I just love your 5-1 energy. Like, I can imagine that there was a lot of growth that needed to happen to really step into being a 5-1 as a woman before we.
Well, when I found out I was a 5-1 manifestor, my whole life started making sense. And I was like, how do you know that about me? Like, even in the report that I got when I first learned about it, they were like, when you were a kid, you wanted to be homeschooled or like private schooled. And I was like, how did you,
Wow.
how did you know that? But it's like those little things where I learned a lot about myself and how I'd been trained to not be myself, how I was trained by generators. So you have to have one job and keep going and just focus on one thing and what's wrong with you and all that stuff. But once I figured out that I have like a 5-year cycle, I started looking back and I was like, oh, yeah, I get bored about 3 years in, start going, blah. And then, oh, what if I caught that early and I didn't have to do that? So, and also I couldn't figure out why people would just ghost me sometimes. I'm like, what did I do? And then I was like, oh, that's them. That's not me,
Mm.
but also annoying because I'm still human and that's frustrating. But even now, I'm starting to realize just how much there's always another level to this. There's always another level of understanding. Like I'm really diving into my gene keys right now and understanding who I am from that perspective, which is even deeper than human design from my perspective. But being able to look at, oh, yeah, I am not like other people and I don't do things like other people. And you and I have talked quite a bit about even my Speak with Confidence sales page,
Mm.
it doesn't work because it isn't me. It follows trends. It follows what we're supposed to do. It follows, blah, 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 blah. It checks all the boxes. But when I gave the report to my husband, he was like, no wonder this isn't working because you're not attracting the people who will need your voice specifically. And I was like, yes, thank you. So it's like really stepping into my voice and being willing to piss people off, being willing to not take all of their stuff when it does happen, but also to continue, which even happened again this morning. I had to apologize to a friend about a conversation we had last night because I just sounded a little tone deaf because I was having a really hard time and I'm used to being there for everyone else and I don't have people there for me as much. And I didn't sound as like lovely and guiding as I normally do. I was just like, "Meh, meh, 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 meh." And she's like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Mm.
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. That actually was totally me. I was having a really hard time with some things and I shouldn't do that. And I should be more aware of that in the future. And it's still a little touchy right now, but I'm like, but I can own that and take that and know that I'm not perfect. Neither are you. Don't put me on a pedestal. I don't know shit most of the time. So
Yeah.
even if I look like I know what I'm talking about, it's me realizing, yeah, you can also just not. and it's okay. You can just apologize. So,
Mm. It's such a priceless experience to have these tools like human design and gene keys. I mean, I think like we're human. We will figure these things out in meandering ways throughout our lives in some way or another, but to have such direct access to
hmm
that kind of information, I think really helps leapfrog across a lot of problems. Being a
yeah.
6'2" projector, it's like, wow, my life feels like such a long game. But
hmm
what an honor it is to be able to be existing this long to maybe reach that point. So,
Right. I agree. Totally. And I also, there's a couple people who've been like, oh, I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't do human design. I don't want to have somebody put me in a box. And I was like,
mm,
whoa, back up a second. This is the one thing that helped me step out of the box that I was put in and helped me see the actual truth of who I am. Not, it didn't put me in a box at all. It released me from all of the boxes that I was being put in. So, mhm.
oh, girl, let's end it on that. That's so good. I'm going to
Mic
restrain
drop.
myself from speaking anymore. You're amazing. Where can people find out more about Speak with Confidence and more about you?
If you check out melaniespring.com or just Google Melanie Spring, I got that in the 90s. Mm.
Nice.
I
Wow,
owned my brand early, so you're welcome. Mhm.
amazing. And then tell us again the dates for Speak with Confidence and how many people are you bringing into that container?
We have spots for 25. So I think at this point, I mean, I'm not going to tell you a number that we have right now, just because I don't know when this is coming out, but we have total spots for 25 because I want to make sure that everyone knows everybody else's stuff, everyone gets a turn. But it starts February 18th, 2026.
Okay, sweet. I'll try to put this out in the next couple of days. Thank you
Mm,
so much for joining me. You're
thanks for
amazing, and I'm
having
so
me.
looking forward to collaborating with you this year.
It'll be so fun.
All right, bye, darling.
Bye.